Bahrain as a state is one of the key sponsors to the horse show.
The protests which have been called against the Windsor Horse Show have been called by Bahrainis in exile in the UK. And the reason why they've called for human rights campaigners to take action is because a lot of them are quite understandably very fearful of the consequences of themselves taking action.
In 2013, when I protested against the King's presence at Royal Windsor Horse Show, when he was next to the Queen, I found myself to be a stateless person, where my citizenship was revoked, arbitrarily revoked by the state to punish me for taking that role. And then in most recent years, I have other family members, including my wife, my mother-in-law, my brother-in-law, and a cousin, all of them being detained, tortured, and targeted simply because of their affiliation with me. And the entire interrogation was about my activities here in the UK.
So there is a real-life consequence for people in Bahrain from this garish spectacle when the King of Bahrain is given the red carpet treatment and treated to an afternoon in a box watching horses with the Queen.
The Bahraini activists were followed all the way back to Paddington by what appears to be intelligence, Bahraini intelligence. And there was an explicit, clear cooperation between the intelligence, Bahraini intelligence here in Britain, and the security intelligence in Bahrain.
That's taken me back to my memories of the 60s when I was living in Chicago and Martin Luther King brought his campaign there to protest against Chicago was the most segregated, racially segregated city in America outside of the Deep South at that time. So he was aware that if he took a group of people of mixed race, including whites, through a completely white neighborhood, there would be a reaction. So we marched through all white neighborhoods and experienced a good deal of, he said he had never witnessed the sense of hatred like that in his life, completely, even including through the Deep South. But big differences I've realized between those demonstrations that went on all summer in '66 and this one is that if we were going to be injured seriously, we knew the government would be supporting us in our actions. We felt the support of the police, and that's something that I think Bahrainis especially would not feel today if they were alone here.
The Bahrainis had not only were able to get away with what they have done in a British soil and in Bahrain, they've been rewarded to come again this year.
To the Bahraini ruling class, to the royal family, to its supporters, they will be seen as a full endorsement of the terrible repression which they have inflicted on the people of Bahrain.
This dictator is having huge investment in London. There is a big arms sales happening between companies here and the regime, and that justifies their stance, but they can't say it. They just can't say it.
The UK has licensed over £80 million worth of weaponry to the Bahraini regime since the Arab Spring uprising in 2011. And that has included component stuff for fighter jets, it's included rifles, it's included a whole array of weaponry. But actually, probably the key thing which has happened in that time has been the opening of a UK naval base in Bahrain.
Britain have always had a geostrategic interest in the Gulf, and they've always had a military presence, well, almost always had a military presence in Bahrain, and they know that the King allows this. They currently have a base there. And since the 1970s in particular, British trade has been very important with Bahrain. So the economic benefits in terms of the way the British government have seen it is that the trade, the selling of weapons, the selling of police expertise have long been important to that relationship, and they continue to be so. And there's a sad truth in all of this, is that actually a lot of this trade is actually based on instability. So the fact is, if you sell police assistance to a country, they're going to be in more need of police assistance if there's repression and instability going on. The same is true of the legal advice that are provided by many British companies. And also, we shouldn't forget the role British PR firms play in this. A lot of British companies spend a lot of time legitimizing this relationship, making money off the fact that it pays to defend human rights abusers.
The British government is involved in every single element of the repression in Bahrain. So I'm talking about taxpayers' money, which goes into this. So to begin with, since 2012, the British government has been designating some sort of almost like 6.5 million to assist Bahrain with what they call a technical assistance program. This goes into training their police, the Bahraini violent police, setting up fake human rights institutions that their role is to whitewash the crimes of the abusers, to send delegations to Geneva in order to ensure that Bahrain can get away with things with impunity, and to ensure that the states are not going to be critical on Bahrain's rights record.
This is a police force, the Bahraini police force, which has been accused of torture. It's been accused of widespread human rights abuses, and it is receiving training from the UK Police Training College. Now, they allege that this is to do with the promotion of human rights, but there's certainly no evidence that has worked. Report after report, which has come out from some of the most respected human rights organisations in the world, has accused the Bahraini regime of routine torture and abuses against Bahraini people.
There are documented human rights violations by major organizations like Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and also Human Rights Council.
We also know that senior Met police officers such as John Yates have gone to Bahrain and have set up doing consultancy work to promote policing and see what Bahrain can learn from Metropolitan Police, but also what the Metropolitan Police can learn from Bahraini authorities.
One female activist was effectively raped by the security, and she was horrifically tortured in Muharraq police station. Later we find out that the head of Muharraq police station is someone which has received British training on intelligence gathering and other things in Northern Ireland, a program which was paid by the British government.
In terms of the naval base which is open in Bahrain, this has been something which has been negotiating for years. And one particularly concerning aspect of it is that it is going to tie UK foreign policy to the Bahraini dictatorship. The more integrated that the militaries become, the more dependent the militaries become, the more integrated the foreign policy becomes as well. And what we have seen, not just in relation to the Saudi regime, but also in relation to Bahrain, which has played a role in Yemen as well, is that they are playing an increasingly aggressive role on the world stage, and it is one where we have seen a terrible humanitarian catastrophe inflicted on the people of Yemen, which UK arms have played a central role in.
All these issues could be resolved by the diplomatic means, and by the moment when states like the UK or the Americans begin to seriously consider that they are in bed with corrupt radical regimes, which as long as they are empowering and as long as they are in strong ties and relationship with, we're going to see further instability within the region and so on.
We know that the vast majority of public opinion is against arms sales to dictatorships and human rights abusers. We need to continue mobilising that public opinion and make sure that as many people as possible are taking action.
This year we have taken some sort of illegal action against the companies which are affiliated with the main organisers of the Royal Windsor Horse Show. We do believe that anyone who is involved in these human rights abuses, who are organising these abuses and allowing them to happen, they are complicit and they must be held to account. In order to be able to hold those companies to account, we need people to support our crowd justice campaign.
We wanted to remind the British government, and we want to remind the Royal Windsor, we want to remind Land Rover, Rolex, every single corporate which been sponsoring, supporting this corrupt, torturer, human rights abusers, ruling family, that we wanted to tell them, why are you hosting torturers?
Why are you hosting torturers?
Why are you hosting torturers?
Why are you hosting torturers?